They came all the way from Los Angeles. We really appreciate their efforts. I'm going to do a very brief introduction because they're going to tell you, Paula especially will tell you all about herself. Paula started doing the Gerson therapy in 1991. So she's been involved with this for a very long time. She's also been a member of the board of directors of the Gerson Institute for many years. And without further ado, I want to welcome Paula and her husband, Gene, who will be coming up later. Thank you,
Diane. Good afternoon, everybody. It's so nice to see so many wonderful faces here, and I understand everybody comes, many people from all over the world are here today. That's just, it's so heartwarming because we've been trying so hard for years just to spread the word of Gerson, and it's just, the best seems to be word of mouth. And it's just, anyway, it's wonderful to see you here. And here's my wonderful husband, yes. So for me, my adventure started in the fall of '91. We'd just been back from a lovely family wedding in Virginia, and I was getting dressed on a Monday morning and found this lump in my breast. And I kind of went into shock and denial for a couple of days because, like so many of us, especially in those days, had heard that if you don't have any cancer in the family, if you're living a reasonably healthy lifestyle, breathing good air, eating healthy food, being organic and vegetarian and all of that, you know, your chances of getting cancer or anything like it are really zero. I mean, that was the word. Well, we all found that was a big old lie, they told us, along with a few other things. And it really sent me into such a shock that it took me a couple of days before I even told my husband what was going on. And then we started the doctor hunt. And since my husband, when he was practicing law, had been a medical malpractice attorney and always represented the patients against the hospitals and the doctors, it was like, oh my God, we're not doing anything traditional. It's just, and all my life I had, you know, since I was an adult, had basically done, you know, very organic, holistic type of healing if there was anything ever necessary. Luckily, I was a fairly healthy person up until then, so I hadn't had to use, you know, the services of the doctors and the hospitals very much. And Gene didn't believe in it either, so we started on our hunt to find some sort of alternative therapy. In the meantime, we did also go on a hunt for an oncologist just to get a correct diagnosis instead of just my intuition that something was terribly, terribly wrong. And that was a whole nightmare adventure in and of itself because I don't know if any of you have had to do that, but so many of the doctors, well, I'm just going to say my experience because being a woman and going in to see at that time, mostly male doctors, they didn't even acknowledge my presence in the room other than a cursory examination. And they would speak entirely to my husband. And when he didn't agree with what they wanted to do, especially the first one, they would really go ballistic. And actually this first doctor, who was a big mucky-muck at St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica, and he said, well, you're just going to kill your wife. And if you don't put her in the hospital today, she's going to be dead in, you know, I don't know, they gave us some arbitrary time, which wasn't much. And we said, we're out of here. So we left and proceeded to go through a litany of doctors and finally found one who actually talked to me, acknowledged my presence. And that was actually me that was going through this physical experience. And he was great for an oncologist. He said, well, it's just this really tiny little lump, and we can do a lumpectomy, and which at that time I hadn't even heard of lumpectomies, because always up till then, from my understanding, it was you have a mastectomy, you do chemo, and you do radiation, and your life's basically over. So he said, no, there's this new technique, reasonably new, and you know, you have such a tiny little lump, you barely have a scar. So I thought, well, that doesn't sound bad. You know, if we get that out, if it isn't going to be that invasive, and then we can go on, we're not doing the radiation, because he said you'll need to do a little radiation afterwards. And we knew we weren't going to do that, but we didn't think we really needed to share that with the doctors, because they're not usually very open and receptive to that sort of information. So we went ahead and scheduled the lumpectomy. It was right in his doctor's, in his outpatient surgery thing that he had at the hospital. And so I'm in the operating room, and he's opened me up, and he freaks out because my entire breast, including my nipple, are filled with cancer. And I had known it was bad. But they don't really like to listen to you because obviously we don't know anything that's going on with our own bodies. And most women, and probably men too, but I know women, most of the women I know are pretty much in tune with their bodies. And you know, if you may not know exactly what it is, but you know when there's something wrong. So he came out, and my husband and my daughter and my mother, who was visiting from Ohio, were out in the waiting room, and he came back out and he said, I have to give her a mastectomy. She is in terrible shape. She has this horrible mass, and it's just horrible. And I had been quite adamant that I didn't care what he found, that he was not to give me a mastectomy. And it wasn't just vanity, it was just the whole process. It was my body. I didn't want this done. So Gene was fairly emphatic with him too, and he said, you really don't want to do that to this woman. Yeah, yeah. Because if you think she was upset in your office when you mentioned it, you have seen nothing if you do this to her. So, which was really kind of a miracle because, you know, when you sign all those papers to have surgery, you basically give away your rights. You know, once they are there and they open you up, and I'm pretty sure this goes for almost any kind of surgery, if they think you need more or it's life-threatening, they can do pretty much whatever they want because they know everything, right? Anyway, so he didn't. But what he did do in the long run was really give me a mini mastectomy. And it was like he said, he came out and he said, I took out a large percentage of the cancer and a portion of the, you know, of the breast tissue. And it was not a pretty sight after that. That's probably the only thing that I really, you know, hindsight being 20/20, if we had had a little bit more time and had not been in such a panic at that point, we probably never would have even had the surgery. So, you know, that's one of the things I tell people when they call is just, you know, take a deep breath, you know, think about this a while, wait a while till you're kind of calmed down, because when you first figure out, you know, if it happens to you like it did to me, if you find a lump or a doctor tells you right away, you know, you don't need to, for most cases, you just don't need to go in immediately and start having surgery. You need time to calm down, relax, think a little bit about the reality of all of this. Anyway, be that as it may, after that, we went on our search for the alternative therapy that we were going to use. And you know, people were very kind and concerned, and they sent us lots of books, and, you know, they gave us as much information as, you know, was available at that time, which was actually kind of a lot. Not as much as we have today, but it was a goodly portion. Anyway, I know it's kind of strange, but a friend of ours, a minister from church, called one day and said, do you guys know about Gerson therapy? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I do, because we had a friend years ago who had gone through Gerson therapy and was doing really, really well until her family got a hold of her and convinced her that she needed to do the alternative medicine, the traditional stuff, and she was dead within 3 months. So that was my experience with Gerson. I thought, that's great. We got the book, we read it, and I thought, well, this is terrific. But then as you get more into, when you start reading about how intense it is and how much is really involved, we thought, well, this is really great and we'll probably do it, but maybe we could look for something else. Maybe that's not quite so work intensive. Well, you know, that's a losing cause because it's the best one. that there is. And we did look at a lot of others. And San Diego happens to be, I'm assuming it still is, it used to be just this mecca of alternative medicine. And there was a clinic down here that was very similar to the GERSON protocol. And so we went down there and we were visiting it. We're down here and we were visiting it, and it was just like, it was doing everything that GERSON did, only somehow it was easier. That's how it seemed like. And there was one thing they wanted to do. They said because of, oh, by the way, I was 45 when I found this lump. And they said, because you're premenopausal, there's a drug that we can give you. And I don't even know if they called it a drug, but it was tamoxifen. And, you know, that kind of, I didn't really acknowledge it, but it settled in my brain somewhere. But anyway, it was like, okay, let's do this. This is just a little bit easier. It's here. We don't have to go to Mexico to the clinic, yada, yada. Signed up for it, started driving home to LA, and I completely fell apart. I said, call them as soon as we get home, cancel the reservation. I'm not looking anymore. We're going to GERSON. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. I don't know. It was one of those moments that I'm sure we've all had for different things over time. Anyway, so it was shortly thereafter I went, you know, my husband brought me down to the clinic, and this was not the one, it was in a different place. And my darling husband was working up north at the time, so he was only here on the weekends, but my mother was here, so she was my partner when we were down there, which was actually kind of fun, that part. But it was, I kind of recommend it to people if they can to go to the clinic, because you just get to learn everything. I mean, you don't learn everything, but you get a feeling for how it operates, how to make the juices. You're talking with other patients who've been there. You know, everybody's in different stages and has different, you know, illnesses, and not everybody has cancer. There was all different kinds of people there with all different kinds of issues. And it was, except for having my first enema down there, everything was a good experience. That wasn't a pretty picture, but you get used to it, right? And then we went home and it set up our kitchen, got the juicer. My mom started making the juices. Jean learned how to do the juices. I did, and we eventually worked out a system. At some point, we were, another friend of mine organized a whole group of people, a bunch of friends of ours from church, who almost all of them came the entire, because I did the therapy for just a little over 2 years. So I had people that were coming every day that volunteer to help make juices or do shopping or help us put packs together. I mean, we got a really great system down on how to do this whole thing, because it almost, you know, that saying, it takes a village, it takes a village. It's very helpful if you have more help than just yourself and one other person, although that's better than nothing, and you can do it that way. And then through the process of the therapy, you know, you go through so many different stages. I was fairly fortunate in a lot of ways. I had been a vegetarian since I was 19, lived at the beach, so at least for California, I was in a place where you got fairly decent oxygen. You know, the air was pretty good. You know, I worked out, I was physical, had a good diet, we had a nice lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle. And when you go to the clinic, you get a doctor that's assigned to you. So every month, I would have blood work done up here, which was that was a whole other kind of nightmare, to find someone who would draw your blood and not have to be super involved in what you were doing. Anyway, we found someone, and then after the results came in, you sent them down, the results down to the clinic, and then you'd have a consult with your doctor. So this went on once a month, and this is to, you know, to make sure you're doing everything right, and if there are any changes that need to be made in the supplements or your diet or anything. And and the diet's a whole other ballgame, right? So after the third month, my blood work came back And I thought, oh, I'm a miracle. I had no cancer cells. Everything was lovely. I said, oh, I only have to do this for 3 months and I'm cured. I don't have to do it for the next 18 or 24 months. And the doctor just laughed on the phone. She said, well, this is wonderful. Your body's responding very well, but you have to do it for the whole time because, you know, the theory, the reality is you have to totally cleanse your body, build it back up so that your body can heal itself, which is what it's supposed to do. So, oh, well, okay. There was a moment of bliss there, but that was okay. And what I had really done was, for myself, because we all have to figure out what's going to work, because 2 years sounds like a long time, to be doing an intense therapy like this 24/7 without a break. And so what I did for my head was I just said, okay, look, I'm 45. It took me 45 years for my body to get into this shape. Whether any of this is true or not, this is what I did. And it's only going to take me 2 years and I get the rest of my life. That's not such a shabby deal. So I just put blinders on and I did exactly what I was told. And I mean, you can talk to my husband. That's not normal for me. I'm not real good about following directions and doing everything. I'll always find some other way that's better or this, that, or the other thing. Anyways, but I did it. And when I had down moments, and you will, and you wonder, did I make the right choice? Am I doing the right thing? Have I totally screwed up this whole thing? Then I would just pick up, the book, Max's book, and read a chapter, say, oh yeah, this is why I'm doing it. This is it. This is why it works. And there were healing reactions, and those were, again, I think I was fortunate because I did have a few. I didn't have too many, but they were fairly intense, with super high fevers and just like you had the almost hallucination. Not quite, but almost. That's how. I mean, 104 temperature for an adult is fairly intense. And there's a few things that you can do, and it's described in the book, and I did them. But one time I had this one where we'd been meditating for many years, and so this one Sunday morning I was sitting in front of my little altar, and I was meditating away, and suddenly I burst into tears, and I'm crying and crying and crying and crying and crying, having no idea why I'm crying. I just can't stop. And my husband comes in the room and he said, what's going on? I said, I don't know. There's something wrong with me. I can't stop crying. And he said, honey, this is great. You're having a cleansing reaction. Your brain is cleansing. Something is going on. It's really good. And he went and got the book. I said, oh, really? Thanks a lot. But it actually did help because it wasn't like out of nowhere. It feels like it's out of nowhere, but it wasn't. And there are those kind of things that can happen. And everybody has, I think, slightly different, different reactions, but we're all going to go through something. And some more, some less. And I don't know, where am I? What else?
With cleansing reactions.
Oh, cleansing reactions. Yeah, those were really fun.
What's your fitness?
Oh, the diet. The diet.
Diet, okay.
Well, my background, I've been in the restaurant business for many, many, many years. And I did a lot of cooking. I was a chef. I had restaurants of my own. We entertained constantly. I mean, food was a huge part of our life, and along with the entertaining. And so I thought, oh my God. The organic was fine because we basically tried to do that anyway. But to cut out all the seasoning and spices and it's down to garlic and onions and some lemons and apple cider vinegar was, oh yeah, and your 1 tablespoon of flaxseed oil a day. Very exciting. I knew some people who actually took it orally, but I needed some for my salad and my potatoes. So I would divide it in half and just sparingly use it. Like, this is really exciting. And I remember the day that I had my consult with the doctor, and he said, well, we're going to add lentils to your diet. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. I was so excited I could have lentils. That meant I could put some tomatoes in and some onions and garlic and have something that, just something different. But I will say, though, your taste buds do acclimate. And even though it's completely outrageously boring and difficult in the beginning, you know, your taste buds adjust and you get the real food taste, and it's okay. You know, it's not French dining, but it's good. And you know it's saving your life. And anybody in my house, that's what they got to eat. If they came to our house, they could get a bowl of Hippocrates soup, because I always had lots of that around, and you know, a salad and potatoes. They thought, how could potatoes do anything for you? This is like exciting to have a potato on your plate. And we get to have it twice a day. It can either be boiled or baked. And you get creative with the things you put on top of it. Anyway, that's, yeah, basically. Oh, and you don't get to do much. You really don't get to do much. I mean, at that time, we had a little condo on the beach, and they didn't even, I said, can I go walking? They said, no, just rest. You just need to rest. At least I could see the water out there, and I could smell it, which was nice. But you really are, it's the one time in your life that someone is going to tell you don't exercise. So if you're going to do that, and if you don't like exercise, it's the only time you have an excuse not to exercise. At least not like you're normally used to. No long, heavy walks. I can remember when I first started being able to go on long walks again. It was just so exciting. I mean, all these little things were really, you know, I figured I had a pretty good appreciation of life and my environment and the people around me and everything, but it even gets a little more intense and wonderful. Anyway, what do you have, honey? He's good. Oh, he's such a trooper for this whole thing. Oh my God. It's nice to have a saint for a husband who puts up with a crazy woman.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How many, may I ask, let me ask this question, and please, how many of you are here that are not actually going to do the therapy, like you're a spouse, a relative, or a friend? How many? Could you just raise your hands? Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Of course, everything she said is absolutely true. I mean, it's even driving down the freeway, and after we left that one place in San Diego, she just looked at me, she said, cancel, I'm going to Gerson. And I said, okay. The reason I'm here, really the reason I'm here today, is because she's here. Through the Dr. Max Gerson therapy. And everything she told you is true, and I'm just talking to maybe the people who are going to be observing or being helping. But it's a wonderful experience in a different way. And when she talked about that day, she was, well, actually, I thought she was going a little bit crazy there, is that if you read the book, it says that the therapy not only cleanses every aspect of your body and builds up your immune system, but it will go ahead and start working on your brain and taking whatever is wrong or whatever chemicals may be in your brain cells, it will take them out. And that was exciting for me, even though it was not a good experience for her, nor me. But that's the reason I got so turned on. It was like, uh-oh, we're about finished with this whole thing. And that was really good. Now, I just want to talk about my observations and what was a real turn-on about the Gerson therapy. Is that, as you well know, all of you, obviously, most of you have probably read his book and probably everything else. But the scientific aspect of it is very, very scientifically correct, direct, and it works. And that is, it takes your immune system and kills the cancer cells and gets rid of all the invasive other cells. That was a turn on for me. Now, the reason it was is because the medical treatment is surgery, mastectomy, chemotherapy, and radiation. You probably know as well as I do, many people take the chemotherapy and they don't die of cancer, but they die because all their immune cells are gone. Bottom line is that, and by the way, you also know, or you wouldn't be here, that a lot of the medical treatment takes a long time. Besides losing all your hair, you have a lot of bad days. So I'm going to go back to the Gerson therapy that, yes, as Paula mentioned, it is very strenuous, very strenuous. The good news for observers like myself is that after a while, when you start taking the cellular tests for your blood to see how many cancer cells you have, and when you see them go down to 0, that really is a great feeling for you who you are dealing with, the patient, your wife, your friend, taking the therapy. That's a wonderful feeling to look at that and say, oh my God, it's down to 0. And then, of course, the health part of it. The other thing is that, you know, she was talking about the therapy and its help therapy. It's you'll find, for you that start on it, you will find that you will not only have somebody very close to you that will help you with the therapy, with the carrots, the greens, the drinks, but you will find somebody close to you, and then you'll find friends, people that, by the way, the people that came into our house to help do this, we didn't even know them that well, okay? They just thought it was a great idea to be a part of this wonderful thing to cure cancer. And they showed up, and they would, you know, they'd show up in maybe 2 or 3 hours, and they did it for a long time. And those people, we haven't seen hardly any of them, except maybe just the nucleus of them. But my point is that you will find people that are very, very interested in your life and your recovery and your treatment because you become a part of it, see? You become a part of it. And there's nothing of the joy of I thought I'd get over this, by the way.
You're so good.
I said to myself, I wasn't going to do this. The bottom is there's a joy in treating somebody with a death disease, and they get well, and they stay well, and they can sit next to you. That is something that I cannot describe, other than I'm saying that it's a wonderful, wonderful experience, and you live with it daily. As a matter of fact, some of the points that she made is that as the observer, I wasn't going through what she was going through, but I could see the changes in her health. I could see the changes where she acted. I could see every aspect of it, and it was just all very, very good. And so, anyway, thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions from me, please see me afterwards. Okay? Thank you very much.
Oh, do we have to stop? Okay.
Oh, no, did you want to?
Well, you know, I just remembered 2 things while he was talking, if that's okay. They're short. Pardon me? I have time? Okay, it's just two things. The thing about the people, you know, we were fortunate, we were eventually able to hire somebody, but even though we did hire them, we still had all these people coming. But one of the things I was going to say about myself, and I don't know, you know, I can't really address other people, but I have other friends who are similar in their attitudes. It's us being a woman and a mother and a grandmother and all of that kind of thing. You're used to taking care of everybody and being the one that's doing the helping and the you know, the giving, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, my girlfriend that organized all these people for us to help did it because she said, I knew you would never ask for help, Paula. You would never do it. And I think, well, maybe eventually I would have, because it was just, it's an overwhelming thing to be dealing with in the beginning. And so when it was all over, in my thank you letter that I wrote to everybody, I told them, I said, you know, this horrible experience, the way we started out was that it ended up, I know this is weird to say, I only say it in very small rooms with people who understand, is that it actually turned out to be a gift, because I was able to, you know, besides being healed, was able to let go, let other people come into my life, take over my house, which I don't know about you ladies, but that's a big thing, and especially my kitchen, and they had an opportunity to give of themselves and to actually help someone else, whether it was me or whoever. And that's an opportunity that, you know, doesn't always present itself to us. So I said it turned out to be a gift in many ways. And yes, I was very fortunate. I was healed and have stayed well, and I'm very blessed. I understand that. And the other thing is the emotional toll that this can take on not only yourself, but if you have family or even have just close friends, if you don't have a big family or what, is very intense. My daughter reacted very badly initially. Not badly, just very strongly. She says, how could God do this to you, Mom? You're so good, you do this, you do that, you do this, and it was like, oh, whoa, I understood the reaction. I mean, she was, what, how old was Jessica? Like 18 at the time, 17,
teenager.
18, I don't know.
Teenager.
She was young,
Yeah.
a teenager on top of
She
everything.
knew everything, yes.
Right, and I said, it's gonna be okay, we're gonna be fine, and it was, I don't think I'm being singled out, this is just something that happens. I don't really understand it. I don't know why. And at this point, and that was in the beginning, I said, I don't care why. I just want it over with. I want to do whatever I need to do and get on with our lives. And it does, it opens up a whole, you know, a whole can of worms for lots of families. I understand that. And even friends. I had friends who couldn't come around me because they were so afraid of my dying that it was too difficult for them to be around me, which I found out is another very typical normal reaction. And then I had a dear aunt and a couple of really good friends who lived out of state. When they were called to talk, Gene screened all my calls, because if they couldn't be supportive, he didn't let them talk to me, because you're so fragile, and you need to have as positive and uplifting environment as is at all possible under these circumstances. So he was like my guard dog on top of everything else. And they got the picture and changed their tune. But it wasn't out of, you know, it wasn't out of anger or animosity. That's how many people react to fear. They were terrified. They'd had, you know, everybody has a story. Well, I had a friend or someone who had cancer and they died. I said, well, then you talk to them and say, well, what did they do? And it was like they didn't even think of that. It's just the thought that I had cancer and they didn't want me to die, which was nice. They didn't want me to die. But I said, well, if I do everything that all these other people you're talking about did, it doesn't seem like my chances are all that great. And so everybody kind of turned around.
Yeah,
I don't think
changed.
there was anybody who actually completely stayed out of our lives. But for him to keep the negativity away as much as possible was very important, because you have enough stuff going on in your own head. You know, questions. You know, most of the time you can be positive, but once in a while when those doubts come in, it's, you know, it can, if it gets a hold of you too much, it can be pretty devastating. You know, I've been on a hotline for years now for GERSON, for women or people with breast cancer, and I mean, really, I can't even tell you the hundreds of people that I've spoken to, and if I can count on one hand the people who've done GERSON out of all those hundreds of people. It's too difficult, it's too fearful, it's, they can't get the support. I mean, there's a million reasons why people don't do it, and I mean, it's unfortunate, and I'm not saying this is the 100% right thing for everybody. I mean, I just can't do that, because I think everybody has a right to make their own choice in what they do and what they believe is the right thing for their body. And the outcome is, you know, it's kind of a toss-up for a lot of people. And I just say, whatever, if you decide to do this, be ready. Be ready to make the commitment. Be ready, because it's not easy. I tell them right that out from the get-go. This isn't, you know, the chemo, the radiation, the surgery, it's all out of your hands. It's somebody else doing it. I mean, you have control of your attitude, but when you put your whole body, mind, and soul in the hands of, you know, the people in the white coats, you've given up a lot of your control. And some, I'm not saying there are people who I know it's worked for, but not too many. And your chances of having a healthy life with no repercussions because of that, doing that, they may get rid of cancer, which is great, and they may have a so-so life or things like, but then pretty soon it's like taking one of those drugs. There are always these side effects that they seem not to really want to tell you about. Anyway, I think this is number one, and I can only speak from our experience, mine, because it wasn't just mine, my whole family went through it. And I was really very, very, very fortunate on many ways. Okay.
Regarding the guard dog name.
And he's really such a quiet guy, but he could growl when he wanted to.
Is that, she covered it, but I just want to say that yes, who's ever in the household is going to get calls from relatives, dear friends, and they want to talk to the person on the therapy, and they want to tell them how they should stop it immediately, how they should go see the doctor, and they should start over again, because, and I would not let any of those calls go to her. And the relatives that were pretty mean over the phone, or maybe I shouldn't use the word mean, very aggressive over the phone, they're all friends. It all worked out, especially when they, you know, she went through it and is alive. The other thing is, I want to address, she addressed the enemas, and
Not much.
that should not be, that may not be a good thing to address right now towards the end here, but I wanted to just say from, again, my standpoint, being an observer, again, it made total sense to me. You've read the book, come on. Max covers it, but it makes total scientific sense that if you're killing cells, your immune system is, they got to come out. And how do they come out? They come out through the enemas.
Oh, yeah.
And it totally made sense to me. Of course, she's the one who had to go through it. But that, by the way, she got into that routine very easily after a while because of the same thing. But, I mean, I'm just going back to what I'm saying is everything about it makes sense, including that you're pulling all of these cells that are getting, the immune system's getting rid of and killing, and you're getting rid of them. They're gone. They're no longer there. So, thank you. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, that's great, the enema thing. I forgot to address that too, but thank you. Because, you know, a lot of people will say, well, 5 coffee enemas a day? And then, you know, then I have this condensed version of the GERSON therapy. I said it's really simple. And before you get into it, I mean, the basic theory is very simple. You're taking in all this nutrition, super high-tech nutrition. It's taking all those bad cells, all the toxins, not the cells, taking all the toxins and pushing, you're getting 99% of the nutrition out of your fruit and vegetables when you're using the Norwalk or the combination of the the other two. And so you've got all this nutrition that's pushing the toxins out of your nice, safe little cells and organs where it's been happy and not bothering you. And if you don't get those out of your system immediately, they're just kind of floating around there. That's why you have the healing reactions. That's why you have the intense headaches that they're, you know, some of those toxins have floated out and not gotten out as fast as you can. But you do those coffee enemas and it's pulling, you know, it's pulling those toxins out just as fast as they can. Oh, the other thing I didn't address was the castor oil. That was probably my #1 unfavorite thing on the therapy was the castor oil. It was, you had to take it orally, and you had to take it in an enema, and you had to do it every other day. And it's very intense. It's like you think the coffee enema is not enough, you do this. It just pulls everything, the bile. I mean, it's supposed to pull more of the bile than even than the coffee enemas alone do. And those were my super down days. I spent a lot of time in a lot of bathrobes those whole 2 years because there were times I didn't even get dressed. I was in my pajamas in a bathrobe the whole time. And no, I did get dressed once in a while, but you're undressing half the time anyway. Yeah, right. And it would just, I keep books in the bathroom. They would be my coffee. I'm taking a coffee break and have a book, maybe a telephone. Once we got cell phones, I had a telephone in there. Yeah, it was great. So anyway, even those can become entertaining. Okay.
Okay.
I think I'm basically done, so.
Yes.
Any
Great.
questions?
Great.
Paula, thanks for your story. Obviously, it was 1994, so we're talking about 20 years ago now. What are you still doing? Are you still having enemas? Are you still on green juices? How is your follow-up after 20 years now? And another question that I have, during the time that you did it, were there not times that you're saying to yourself, you know, this is lunatic, this is crazy, I'm being set up to fail?
Well, you know what? I'll address that question first. I never quite put it in those terms, but when I had my doubts and got fearful, what I just did was I picked up the book, Max's book, and started reading it and reminding myself why I was doing this and why. And I had good blood results every time I had a checkup. So that really kind of took care of it, those two things together, because you will have doubts. I think no matter what you do, you're going to question all of it. And another thing I forgot to mention was that I did add acupuncture, and my acupuncturist had acupuncture, and the Bach flower remedies, which work on the emotional system, which was really very helpful. Bach, B-A-C-H, flower remedies. And now you can find them in any health food store. It wasn't that easy in those days, but those really helped. And then the first question was?
About
What are you still doing
now?
Oh, what am I still doing? No, I'm not one of those people who do it 100%. I still juice. You know, I have a juice, you know, carrot juice and green juices every week. I don't have, you know, 13 a day, but I have them every week. We follow a very organic, healthy diet, but because I think you have to go according to your lifestyle and you and who you are and the kind of life that works for you. And this is what works for us. Our life is our family and entertaining and some travel, and I don't do it. I mean, I know Charlotte wishes I didn't wear makeup and color my hair, but I couldn't look at myself in the mirror anymore without it. So
Charlotte told me,
yeah,
by the way,
it works for me.
Don't do that.
Every time she sees me, I get a look. And I can live with it, right? But it's like everybody has to find their own way of doing it. I remember talking to one guy, no, him I didn't talk to, but hearing about this one guy, a fairly young guy, was in his 30s, went through the whole therapy, and then immediately afterwards went back to eating McDonald's and fast food. Now, God bless him. I don't know how that worked out for him, but that's a real extreme. Then there was another man who had had brain tumor. He was in his 60s by this time, and he had had brain cancer and had been on the therapy, completely gotten rid of it, and he told me, he said, I'm just staying on the therapy. That works for me. I'm going to do it. Not 100%, but close to it, more of a maintenance thing. So it just, you know, it's up to you, it's your life. You figure out what works for you.
We have a question from the live stream people.
Yes.
They were wondering if you used antiperspirant before you got the cancer?
No, I did, but I used that crystal, that rock.
Okay.
That's all I used, right?
I'm glad you mentioned that brain tumor guy. That's
Right.
important for all you to remember.
Yeah. 'Cause I have a sister-in-law who just died of a brain tumor in 6 months because she did everything the doctors told her to do. It's very sad. She's very young, horrible. Anyway,
Oh yeah, and
that was their choice.
By the way, ladies, she made, when she started dyeing her hair blonde, she really did a lot of research to get the best the best dye that had less chemicals in it. I mean, remember that?
Oh yeah, and
I'm
do
just
the
telling
mineral, you know, all the makeup that's, you know, there's
Yeah.
so many good things out there now.
Yeah,
Whether you
anyway.
want to do it or not, I mean, if you choose to do it, there are things out there that are fairly reasonable.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, dear.
I had a question about when you said you introduced lentils into your diet. When was that? I've never.
You know, when,
I mean,
are you
was it
waiting for
early?
the lentils?
Yeah, no. Was it early in the therapy? or
Well,
really late in
no,
the therapy?
I think I don't remember exactly, but it had to be at least 6 months into
Oh,
it.
okay.
6,
Just to
8
increase your
months.
protein. It wasn't instead of the yogurt or anything, though, right?
No. And I wasn't a big, but when I was allowed to have the cheese, there's a cheese that you can make from milk, because you can't buy cheese without salt in it. Even the farmer's cheese has some salt in it. So there's a process that you just take a gallon of milk and you put it in you've probably seen it. That was another terrible cheese freak here. That was very exciting to have that, yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.